Holy bananas. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Okay, where do I even start? This one was directed by Christopher McQuarrie, who also directed Rogue Nation and Fallout, the latter of which many consider to be the best so far. It stars your usual suspects, Tom Cruise returning in his most iconic role as Ethan Hunt. You have Ving, Rhames, Pegg, Rebecca Ferguson, all coming back to the franchise. But you also have new badasses being thrust into the fray like Hayley, Atwell, and Esai Morales. Hunt and the team must track down a terrifying new weapon that threatens all of humanity if it falls into the wrong hands. With control of the future and the fate of the world at stake, a deadly race around the globe begins. It is crazy that the 7th movie in the franchise just keeps upping the stakes and raising the bar. It should come as no surprise that all the acting is great in this movie. It should come as no surprise that Tom Cruise is a badass and so great in this film, doing all of his own stunts. May I please remind you that this man just turned 61 years old. And here he is doing all of these crazy things. He is hopping on tops of trains. He is doing the thing that you see in the trailer, riding the bike up the steep slope on that cliff and jumping all the way off. My God, man. You cannot tell me that this dude doesn't love his job. Even though a lot of people are claiming that Dead Reckoning Parts 1 and 2 are not the finale of the franchise, it certainly kind of feels that way to me because of the way that they treat Ethan Hunt and his character. He honestly feels the most interesting he has in a while, because it finally begs the question with the introduction of Hayley Atwell's character, who I'll talk about. Ving Rhames as Luther Stickle once again being freaking awesome. He's kind of questioning Hunt and being like, why the heck are you even doing this? Why did you choose to accept the mission and ghost pretty much everybody that was important to you in your life? And it's not just an awesome action movie with great stunts all the way through this entire beefy runtime at 2 hours and 43 minutes, but it's a super fascinating character study at a character we've been following for practically my whole lifespan of 26 years. And it was super riveting to watch from start to finish. Like I said, this is the longest entry in the franchise by far, surpassing Fallout by about 20 minutes or so. And yet it didn't really feel that way. Matter of fact, this movie pretty much flew by. I saw this at a 5:45 p.m. screening. It was dark outside once I left, but it honestly did not feel like that. And I will tell you now, even though the subtitle of this movie does say Part 1, this movie does not bait and switch you in any way. You will not feel ripped off leaving this movie. Because what Cruise and McQuarrie are bringing you ultimately is just pure bona fide entertainment with an action movie. And you can tell that they want to make sure that every person who pays a ticket to see it the way it was meant to be seen, big, they wanted to make sure they got their money's worth. And I think that's exactly what they did. All of your returning players are great. Rebecca Ferguson is once again stealing most of the scenes that she's in as Ilsa Faust. Such a great character they introduced in Rogue Nation. Pegg had me cracking up, guys. He, there's a scene involving a bomb and him basically cracking the code. It was actually kind of white-knuckled in a sense, and it actually kind of picked at my brain a little bit. I'm trying to be as vague as I possibly can, and I don't want to spoil this movie for you guys because I want you guys to go and support this in the theater and enjoy it. But all this returning supporting cast, definitely, like I said in the past reviews, I reviewed all 6 Mission Impossible movies so far, but they all bring their A game. Vanessa Kirby, who I didn't even mention in the Fallout review, and shame on me for that because she was awesome in that movie. She doesn't have as much of a presence in Dead Reckoning Part 1 as I would have liked, but she was still really great, really stone cold like the White Widow character deserves. You also have Klementieff, Mantis from the Guardians of the Galaxy movies making an appearance here as a side villain. She basically only has about 3 lines of dialogue. When she speaks though, you listen. And my God, is she a badass. There's a fight sequence she has with Tom Cruise in an alleyway. Even though it did have a bit too much shaky cam for my liking, man, I was riveted. Now, one actor that I have left out up to this point is Hayley Atwell, Peggy Carter of Captain America fame. She is introduced into this movie, and she is basically presented to you as a thief and a scoundrel at first. But then she's kind of roped into this mission with Ethan Hunt, and my God, I mean, Hayley Atwell as Grace, this character, she might be the best new character I've seen introduced into a Mission Impossible movie, probably ever. Because when she's first roped into the mission, like, of course she's not going to be a natural at it. She's going to be absolutely terrible at driving cars. There's such an exciting car chase where her and Tom Cruise are basically handcuffed together behind the wheel. And it's probably one of the best car chases you'll ever see. Christopher McQuarrie directed the out of it. He directs the out of the entire movie in general. And this movie also feels like it harkens back to what the original Mission Impossible was trying to do. The spy espionage sort of thriller. It is presented so much more so like a thriller because there's so many little sequences here. It just leaves you on the edge of your seat. That entire third act and that whole train sequence, some of which you see in the trailer, of course. But my God, when you see it in its entirety, my heart just about jumped up into my throat. I was so like, oh, God, no, don't fall. Loved every second of it. I didn't want it to end, which makes it all the more hurtful when the movie does end. It's not necessarily on a cliffhanger, but I was just sitting there like, I want to turn on part 2 right now, but I gotta wait a whole another year. God, oh boy. Now, one aspect I can see people nitpicking this movie about is the villain being very cookie cutter. That's not necessarily Esai Morales' fault, though. And if I could be biased for a second, this actor actually delivered the keynote address at my college graduation. So, Esai Morales, thank you so much for that wisdom. I am so freaking happy to see you thriving in this industry. And this dude is so freaking awesome. I really hope after this franchise is done with him, I really hope that Hollywood gives this guy so much more attention. He was so freaking good as the bad guy here. But yeah, if people said that he was not as compelling as Henry Cavill was in Fallout, being the enemy from within, this guy by comparison is very straightforward as the villain. You obviously don't get the villain reveal trope and he's just your straight up enemy. Not gonna give too much away, but his connection to Ethan Hunt as a character was super compelling. My only other real nitpick with this movie is you're gonna have a lot of just drawn out exposition dump sequences. And that kind of hurt with the pacing a little bit. That's kind of why I prefer Ghost Protocol and Fallout both over this one. Because by comparison, 4 and 6 are so much more streamlined than 7 is. But I really freaking admire MI7 for not treating its audience like dummies. I have to pay my respects to a movie that is going to respect my intelligence as a viewer, which much like the original Mission Impossible did, treated its audience with respect, made sure that they were paying attention throughout the entire runtime. But yeah, if you were to sit here and tell me that a lot of those exposition dump sequences were way too long, I agree with you. Did they need to be as long as they were? Probably not. Why does every big movie nowadays need to be 2.5 hours? Why is that the normal quota? But yeah, you're gonna have a lot of scenes with people like Cary Elwes, who I had no idea was in this movie. You basically have sequences where he comes in and basically just plot dumps on you. These are much needed, though, for a story of this epic magnitude. Besides those teeny little nitpicks, guys, MI7 I definitely think is going to stand out as one of the best movies of 2023. Awesome spine-tingling action, phenomenal performances, and some crazy-ass stunts from a 60-year-old man. Great director's vision and a super compelling villain. That all goes a long way to making this one of my favorites of the year. I'm going to give Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 an A. Obviously, if you're a fan of this franchise, go seek this out in the theaters when you can. Preferably before Oppenheimer comes out. Definitely go ahead and see this in IMAX. You can see why this movie was released on a Tuesday rather than a Thursday. Just so you can get that extra little time on the IMAX screen before Christopher Nolan takes over. But let me know what you thought of MI7 down in the comments. Is this your guys' favorite entry? Is it something else? You can make a legitimate argument for like half of this franchise. It is so freaking awesome. I've reviewed every single Mission Impossible movie up to this point. That is in a gigantic playlist on my channel now, so feel free to check those out. And if you're new, do become a subscriber and tap on that like button as well, because this is already a fantastic community of film lovers and entertainment lovers alike, but let's continue to grow it even more. Guys, y'all are the best. Stay tuned for more videos very soon as we continue trudging along through a jam-packed month of July. So with all that being said, Back Talk, commence.